We're- Okay, welcome, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Am I muted? No? Okay. To our Monday, June 21st caucus before our main meeting. Just getting right into our agenda. Start with, first up on the agenda is a public hearing for Mr. O'Shea's ordinance 1861-21, and we'll be moving that ordinance based pending the outcome of the public hearing. Next, meetings minutes, the June 7th meeting minutes will be offered for passage. Okay. Moving into local laws, none introduced. This from a conversation I had with Mr. O'Shea earlier. We were slated to do something with a local law C, but it was pending attendance. I'll come back to it when she gets in the meeting, but I don't believe we'll be moving forward with it tonight at her request, but we'll see when she gets in the meeting. Okay. Next on to under local laws. Mr. Conti's local law G was up also. I spoke with him and he wants to wait so he can do it. As the sponsor, we'll wait for our next meeting so he can move it. Then Mr. Anani's local law H of 2021, that needs an amendment. So you'll just be amending that tonight, and then it's got to age, Mr. Anani. And next, Ms. Fahey's local law I, that's ready to go. So we will be passing that, correct, Ms. Fahey?
Yes, all set on that.
Okay, good. Okay, that was it in the local laws. On to ordinances. When the ordinance is held, we have Mr. O'Brien's ordinance 1552-21 as amended. We'll be voting on that this evening. Okay, did you want to say something, Mr. O'Brien?
No, I was just going to say,
Okay.
pass that at the General Services Committee. Unanimous.
Okay, thank you. And then next, we also have ordinance 1861-21 by Mr. O'Shea for the green roof of the USDO. She wants to move that, so we'll be voting on that tonight also. All right. This is next on to resolutions introduced. We'll have 5462-21R by Mr. Flynn. Did you want to say, and it allows Mr. Sano to be a marriage officer until August 1st. Did you want to say anything, Jack?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
He's holding a wedding. He just wants, that's it.
Okay, thanks. There'll be a pass. Next by Ms. Fahey. Resolution 5562-21R. Resolution appointing the folks to the municipal internet service. Did you want to mention anything, Ms. Fahey?
No, we had an opportunity to meet. I think we met everybody at our last caucus. So that's Caitlin Monjo, Ira Bethia, Scott Jarzombek, Carol Holt, and Martin Robinson. And they're the mayor's also appointing 5 members as well.
Thank you, Kate. Ms. Fahey. Okay, and then next resolution introduces mine. It's 5662-21R, honoring Charles Tringham and renaming a portion of Mohawk Street in his name. That'll be a referral to General Services Committee. And that is the end of,
Excuse me, Kelly.
Mhm.
Said renaming Mohawk Street after who?
Charles Trainum, Chucky Trainum.
Oh, yeah. I missed that one.
Yeah, it was like a last minute add-on. So with that, we're at the end of what we have scheduled as our agenda. Any questions, comments? Actually, before everyone got into the meeting, Mr. Igo had asked where we were with the upgrades to the chambers. We actually, myself, Ms. Gillespie, Michael O'Brien, some of the other folks that have been involved over the last 2 years with PEG in this process, met with the vendor and kind of got his specs, and he kind of went through his proposal for us. And at the end of the day, we decided as a group that we move forward with it. So that work will be getting done in the next couple of months. So is anyone that was in the meeting? Mike, do you want to say anything to Danielle?
Yeah, there is no controversy. It was a whole package that was reviewed by Danielle and by the PEG board. And then I guess the actual equipment is being paid for by a grant that we got a long time ago from the cable company. But the installation is coming out of a budget item. I'm not sure which budget item.
Probably contracted services,
Okay.
given the cost of the installation and the training.
Okay, but we gave him the go-ahead to go ahead and order the equipment as listed in that whole package. And he said, once he gets the authorization well, he doesn't really get paid until it's done, but I think that's a foregone conclusion that I forget what he said his bill is, but he said he could do it within about a week's time once he has everything starting. And that's also going to include a portable cart, which would cover meetings and caucus meetings in the courtroom or proceedings down in the rotunda.
Right. Yes. And actually, Danielle,
And live streaming, which would be at the request of our IT director. The live streaming is going to be monitored by a third-party vendor. We aren't just going to directly live stream to Facebook or YouTube, because then the meeting, whatever we live stream then becomes their property. And they could insist that people watch a bunch of commercials in order to see our meetings. So the IT director was going to have a third party that we actually live stream to, who then puts it out on our website and probably on Facebook also.
thank you, Mike. And Danielle, that was what I was going to ask you, if you wanted to go into the live streaming, third-party streaming portion of it.
Sure. We're kind of sort of at the phase, like I had a conference call earlier today with Laura Golfo and Corporation Counsel. We would have to get him to send an updated proposal, because some items that he referenced during our meeting weren't in the actual proposal, and the proposal becomes a part of the contract. So we're waiting on him to send the updated proposal. And then, we want to make sure that we nail down the timeline, because once he begins the project with the equipment update, we wouldn't be able to record, because he would have to disable everything. In the meeting, he mentioned 3 weeks before he got the actual equipment in, and he said he could do the install in a day and a half. I think that's a very ambitious goal. I think overall, we're looking at about 5 weeks in total, will be my best guess estimate. We made this a collaborative, so we're looking at replacing the equipment and then also taking our meeting streaming to the next level and streaming to multiple platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and then our own webpage, like Councilman O'Brien said, to make sure that people don't have to watch those ads. And if you watch YouTube videos on a regular, you notice the ads. You'll get a good 3 minutes into your video and then it'll transition to an ad. We're also looking at other collaborations and partnerships. So we could have the video playing and then the agenda. That's something more long-term. But yeah, I think Councilman O'Brien, what he shared was pretty much comprehensive.
Yeah, and our IT director gave an example of a couple of cities. Flagstaff has a broadcast where you're actually seeing the live meeting. At the same time, you're seeing the agenda. They could do a 3-screen split. You'd see the meeting, the agenda, and the actual legislation at the same time. So that's a possibility too in terms of format.
Yeah, I think San Antonio was one of the examples. It was something to see. I'd love to see us get there. It was very helpful to follow along, and then the way the page was set up, the hyperlinks in the agenda allowed you to click on it and go to that portion of the video. It tied directly to, if you were discussing local law C, for instance, you click it on there and it went right to that part of the discussion. It was awesome. And if we could do that. But of course, there's a cost to that. It's not cheap. So that's why we're not jumping right to that. We gotta figure out how we get there. So, but yeah, anything else? Mr. O'Shea, we've gone through the agenda, and I told everyone we'd go back to see what you want to do with local law, see if you want to hold off or.
Well, currently it looks like there's only 10 members in attendance, and I believe that Owusu will also be attending, so that would bring you to 11, which I think that because there's so many members that are unable to attend, it would make sense to defer to another meeting.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
actually, Mr. Anani was just here. I don't know where he blipped out to, but he was just there a second ago. So, anyone else? Anything else? We got some time.
I'm glad that other people can figure out this webinar versus Zoom thing. I don't know what happened to my notice. I'm sure I got it. But I do appreciate it when JR is able to send us the link the same day of the meeting, because I generally know where to look for that now.
Mine was in the junk today, Judy.
What?
Mine was in a junk file today. I found it.
Oh, I didn't look
Anyway,
there.
it's all the junk and trash. So.
Yeah, I think the issue is it comes from Zoom. I think it's when you get the email from JR saying to look out for it, it's usually within like 20 minutes that it follows for the webinar link. And sometimes it gets caught up in spam, but it was sent out today. And it's as simple as the other links. It says join meeting, you click it and you go right in. You just got to find it. Yeah. What's that?
Just want to say I'm glad that the chief is staying. So I don't know if everyone saw the press release today, but he has withdrawn his name from the race of becoming the police chief for Akron. So that's good news. I think many of our residents had some concerns as relates to all the activity that's happening in our city, and to have a police chief interviewing somewhere else. So I'm glad that is over and that he has made a commitment to stay in the city. So I just want to put that out there, just in case there are some people that were not familiar.
And unfortunately, I don't know if anybody's heard, but Deputy Chief Hogan has put his notice in to retire.
Yeah.
Do we get any feedback as to why both deputy chiefs have left or weren't in such a short time? Did they do exit interviews? I mean, that's gotta be unusual. That,
Oh,
two of the- that
My-
basically all three of the top guys were looking to leave. One of them decided not to, but that's unprecedented.
Mike, who are you talking, who else? What other, Donahue are you talking
Jack
about?
just said Deputy
Yeah.
Chief Hogan, right?
Yes, but who's the other one?
Donahue's
Jeff
already-
Donahue.
Oh,
Yeah,
my gosh.
it's been, yeah,
The
Donahue's
top,
been,
the top three wanted to leave.
Wow.
right, yeah.
So,
And I
I
find
mean,
it,
There's a lot more looking right now.
one of them
too.
decided to do that today. Brian Hogan decided to do that today. Put in his retirement.
I mean, there's,
The other day.
yeah, there's been talk for a while of him doing it, but yeah, recently, I believe.
So
It's,
it sounds like people are surprised that this is happening.
no, but it's unfortunate that it is.
Kelly, just, do we have to go in executive session, talk about personnel, or is that still okay? Like,
Well, I'm not an attorney, but I mean, we're not going too deep, and all this stuff is in the public space already, so I don't think anyone's gone too far at this point, so maybe.
I'm just saying, just paying attention to, public knowledge, with, like we all know people on the force. We all know people in the community, and, I'm pretty sure y'all hear a lot, just like I hear a lot. And, that's why my comments were as such at the end of the last meeting. If we do go into, we get into a situation where the chief leaves, or, for whatever reason, I think it's a time to take a hard look at hiring somebody from within APD, being that it's going through all types of transitions. And, when I made that comment on Wednesday, I was unaware that, the two deputy chiefs were retiring. So that makes it even a stronger point that we need to have some conversations about, as a council, what we feel and who we think that would be a good fit to make some recommendations.
This rate, I don't know how much experience is going to be left.
But Joe, we know some of the people that left that really wanted, that still want to be involved, and so, like, that's the conversation, and I think is like the elephant in the room. People are waiting. It's just ironic that, I think it was Tom Hoey mentioned Hogan's name last meeting as being a guy that for consideration for being the police chief. So it would be a difficult spot for anybody to walk into to a department that is going through as many changes and challenges as, APD is going through currently.
I agree at this time.
We lost a lot of talent, man.
Yeah, but I'd make the argument that police departments around the country are dealing with the same or similar issues. Just a lot of stuff going on right now, civil unrest and issues that we need to work through. I'd like to see, police come to the table with community and try to resolve it and come to some agreement and, agree to disagree, but folks need to be treated better by police, and the community needs to realize that every police officer isn't bad. So my take on
Question,
it.
how long have we been without a contract for the police?
9 years.
I don't think it's been that long. It's been 9 years. I thought it was like 7.
Jack, do you know?
I believe the
I
last
think
time,
16. All right. It's about 2016 possibly, I believe.
I believe the last contract ended in 2015, and that was with the binding arbitration. So that could only cover those 2 years. So we've been waiting since then. It's a lot.
They can go back to the negotiating table now, is that my understanding?
Well, I think in the last week, there was been a vote on what, the PBA Council 82 question, I think. And I haven't heard the results of that yet. It's the membership has to decide their representation, and then I think they can re-engage the city's administration to try to move forward.
Well, one of the things, I would like to see is when there are changes in personnel in some of these key positions, that we are made aware of it. I mean, even something as simple as the neighborhood engagement unit, things come up and, there's just a lot of changes in personnel. I think it should either be posted on the website or they should notify the council, because it's, those extra steps we have to take to make several calls to find out who's the new beat officer or who's the new commander or who's the new, all these positions. I don't know if other folks are finding that, but I certainly am.
Well, they all think,
I'm frustrated with the lack of information that we get about a lot of things. And sometimes the way that we are finding out about something, often it is via a press release that has been issued to the public. But then there's a lot of other stuff that may not be as significant for the public to know that we should be being informed of. And certainly these retirements are significant.
Absolutely.
I agree, the leadership, we should definitely know. And it is rather concerning when you lose your neighborhood police officer. But then there's a whole process, right, Kelly, where they have to bid on them and it all goes by seniority, and one moves, the other wants to move. So that's it's a big shakeup, a couple start. And some might not want to move up, waiting for another one. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a process for that. But when you talk about the top level,
I know at the top, if someone just says about it, they don't know who their neighborhood cop is or whatever.
Well, it's not always just your neighborhood cop. I mean, you can
Yeah.
have issues with in another ward, and it's helpful to know who the beat officers are in all the wards, all the beats, because they do overlap the wards actually.
Can I ask
Joe,
you?
I want to thank you for letting me know where to find my credentials. They were in my junk mail box. I'll have to remember to look there the next time.
If you just allow it now, it'll stop sending it there.
It'll stop what?
It'll stop sending it to spam. You could just mark it as not spam. And it won't
Oh,
do it
I
again.
so I moved it to my inbox. Is that sufficient? Yeah.
Is it Gmail? Yeah.
You want to make sure it doesn't recognize it as spam going forward. Just moving it from your inbox, from your spam to your inbox doesn't mean
Might
that'll,
not do it.
it might not stop it next time.
So what do I do?
Right click on it and it gives you options.
I have 576 in my junk today.
Can I ask a question as to where we are with our replacement for Michelle Andre? Have we heard?
Yeah, so again, with that process, you were there, we went through it.
Yeah.
But Danielle followed up, but Danielle, do you want to just go through the process of following up and not receiving responses?
Sure. Absolutely. It was narrowed down to 2 potential candidates that interviewed well, and they were invited to come in for an in-person interview. I sent the invitation out and I received no responses. So I followed up with 2 calls to 1 candidate and left voicemail messages, still haven't received a response. The other candidate called last week. Well, they did, I got them on the phone. They said that they were out of the city and they were unable to come in for an in-person interview. And then they called me like maybe Thursday of last week to say they were still interested and wanted to know if the council had made a decision. And then when I had mentioned that in that invitation, I had asked for their references and they had indicated that they didn't have access to internet services where they were. So I guess, you know, that puts us kind of sort of at a standstill. And, you know, we're looking at some creative ways to fill the position temporarily, possibly a temp, and then re-interview additional candidates. I did put the posting back up. So that is where we are. Since the posting went up, we had 4 responses, and at least half of them, they don't currently live in the state. So.
I just want to just give a recommendation. I know this is quite a process, but just if there's an opening next time, especially with all the anchor universities we have around here, we shouldn't wait until they all leave for the summer to try to get them to interview. You know, I think sometimes we should be a little bit cognizant that, you know, some of the college students, they're looking, once they graduate, they want to stay in the city of Albany. They enjoy all the benefits that Albany has. But if they're waiting to, you know, after they graduate and leave Albany and then, hey, are you interested in the job? I think just next time, just for us to be a little bit more proactive. And this is not just for our position, but I think as a city as a whole, you know, if there's an opening, we shouldn't, you know, try to wait for the summertime to try to hire, because there's a lot of talent at some of these anchor institutions. St. Rose, you know, University of Albany, you know, Sage. There's a lot of talent here. So I think that just for future.
We hope the next one, if they decide to leave or interviewing for other jobs, they would tell us prior so we could start that process, and that would probably happen. Okay. And you know, that's part of everything. It's just not one thing.
Gotcha.
I mean, you know, if we get earlier notice, this person would have been hired already. We probably would have reached out to colleges and had more candidates interview. So I hope the next one, and I think this council will be clear, you know, if you're deciding to move on, if you're interviewing for other jobs, that's fine. Just give us a heads up so we start that process.
Yeah.
Because we know this is not a career job, right? We understand this is a job where people gain some experience, and they might want to move on.
Yeah.
And so we would ask that the person gets the job, you know, in the future, if you think about moving on, doing interviews, it's not like we're going to let you go if you're seeking to move up, but it does put us in the process where we can start that process. And that didn't happen this time. If that happened, we'd probably be in a different situation.
Yeah.
But
I just think just moving forward, you know, just have that on the back of my mind. But I agree, it's a two-way street. It's not just us, you know, they need to be transparent with us just as much as we need to be engaged. So, all right. Thank you.
Right, and just one last thing, they were basically in the queue. The process didn't start at the last minute. They were in the process dating back a couple of months. So did you want to say something, Ms. Gillespie?
I just had a really quick unrelated question with regard to people who signed up for public comment. Some of those folks that signed up want to speak specific to local law C. So are you going to give them an indication before we get to the public comment period that, you know, what the status of local law C is, and if the council, you know, what the council's planning on doing?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that. Yeah. If you, actually, I would ask you to do that, Mr. O'Shea.
Will do.
As the sponsor.
Not an issue.
So did you get that?
Yep, I got it.
No, I'm Mr. O'Shea.
Okay, so that's a little weird because I'm not running the meeting. I don't.
Okay, I can do it.
I did let certain people know that it was more likely than not that we would not be taking this up because of the number of anticipated absences.
I will do it when we get to local laws. Introduction. Oh, can't do it. Gotta. So, all right. It's 7 o'clock. We'll do it. I'll do it right after the public hearing. But people are willing to speak, even if we're not voting on. People do it all the time. we don't vote on laws at night, they might speak. I mean,
Right, but I just offered that, Mr. Shea, because I thought maybe you might want to say something, but, Mr. President, I'll turn over to you.
Thank you. Good evening. It is June 21st, 2021, at 7 p.m. Start of our Albany Common Council meeting. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. President, if all members can unmute themselves. Anani,
Present.
Halloran,
Yeah.
Conti, Doshett,
Here,
Fahey,
Here,
Farrell, Flynn,
Here.
Frederick,
Here.
Hoey,
Here.
Igo,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Kimbrough,
Here.
Love, O'Brien,
Here.
Robinson. 11 members present, 4 absent.
Can you put up the flag so we can say, have our pledge allegiance, and then after that, we'll have a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So now we'll move on, continue with our agenda. We do have a public hearing scheduled for today. Unlike public comment, public hearing, if we have anyone signed up for the public hearing, you will only be able to talk about the ordinance that is up for public hearing. And during that time, unlike public comment, if common council members have any questions, they're allowed to question you at that time, unlike public comment. So with that being said, Madam Clerk, can you read the ordinance?
Ordinance amending Chapter 375 of the Code of the City of Albany, the Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance, in relation to incentives for developers to use energy efficient and low impact designs.
And do we have anybody signed up for this public hearing?
I don't see anyone signed up. Mainly, most of the responses that I got were specific to other items on the agenda. If you bear with us 1 second, we'll try and poll the attendees just to confirm that they're not here to speak.
Yep, thank you.
So we checked the registrations and none of them have indicated that their comments were specific to the ordinance at hand.
Okay, thank you. That being said, we have no one signed up for public hearing on this ordinance. So at this time, we'll deem the public hearing closed. And we'll move on to into other part of our agenda, which is the public comment period. For all those, just for new noted, anyone signed up to speak on local law C tonight will not be voted on. And so you can still speak on local law C if you wish, but we just wanted to let you know tonight that local law will not be voted on due to membership attendance. Mr. Shea, I'll recognize you. If you like.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just for clarification, I wanted to let anybody who is here to comment on local law C or thought that it was up for a vote, that I have asked the council to defer action on this because 4 members are unable to attend tonight's council meeting. And I think it's appropriate to have as full of attendance for this vote as possible. So I just wanted to let people know the reason for the deferral again.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Now we continue on with our public comment period. You have 5 minutes to speak upon any subject you wish. At that time, council members cannot answer any of your questions. If they choose to do so, they will do so later on at another time during the agenda. When you speak, please state your name and address for the record. And with that being said, and at 4 minutes, I will let you know you have a minute remaining to speak. And with that being said, can the clerk call the first speaker?
Thomas Mueller.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Mueller. Go right ahead.
Okay, it's actually Mueller, but
All right. State your name and address for the record, Mr. Mueller.
absolutely. My name is Thomas Mueller. I live at 22 Tremont Street in Albany, New York. Originally, I was here to comment on local law C. Once again, I'm extremely disappointed that the council is not prepared to bring this to a vote. Understanding that the absence of 4 members is causing that. I'm even more disappointed because this was put out with plenty of prior notice and still 4 members are absent. I get that we all have things that happen. However, I would think that such an important issue would really encourage all members to be present for the vote. With that said, I did want to speak in full support of local law C. It has become quite clear to anybody who's watched the Common Council meetings for the past several months that this is what the community wants. I don't know how any council member can sit there and say that the community does not want this. I was very concerned with some of the remarks by certain council members implying that if they take away tear gas and rubber bullets, that the police will use more deadly force in order to address any issues that might arise. I view that as gaslighting and fear mongering. And if that is really true and how people on the council feel, then there is a much bigger problem in APD and a much bigger problem in the community that needs to be addressed. Once again, the community has been quite clear. I've heard certain members say, oh, people are contacting us, we want it, we want it. And yet I have sat on every council meeting and the public safety meetings for months now, and I have yet to hear anybody speak in favor of it. So I am asking that all council members listen to their constituents and the community at large. We want a full ban on tear gas. We want a full ban on rubber bullets. And we do not want a repeat of what took place last year, where hundreds of people were brutalized in their own homes. Many of them were not taking part in any demonstrations and are still suffering the lasting effects and the trauma. So once again, I'm speaking in full support of local law C. I'd like to thank the sponsors of this bill, and there's a cat. And then hopefully we will get a vote in the near future. I really, again, am disappointed, and it is not lost on me that tomorrow is the primary. So I'm keeping that in mind when I will be casting my votes tomorrow. And again, once again, thank you to all of those who are supporting the passage of local law C. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Adrian Charles Hole.
You're muted. Stop. Adrian.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adrian Charles Hill, and I live at 28 Delaware Terrace in the city of Albany. I'm the co-chair of Housing for All, and I also am the community organizer for United Church of Albany. Wanted to speak in reference to local laws, FGH&I of 2021. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who has sponsored this legislation, those who have worked on it, and all the conversation that has been had in reference to it. Working in the housing strata here in the capital region for a number of years, the problems, situations, et cetera, that tenants face have been basically part of my life's work, day-to-day work for many years. And stabilization, affordability, all of these things come into play when you're dealing with our capital region residents in reference to their housing. It's important that things are put in place to help them and protect them, and also to not only acknowledge the good landlords that definitely have been helpful in keeping folks in their dwellings during this past year, but to also put those on notice who are folks who have extracted not only wealth from this community, but choose not to invest it in the community. And I think a lot of the areas of our city who are experiencing more severe situations and consequences are a part of the disinvestment in certain communities. Moving forward, I would definitely like to be a part of any conversation, anything that is going to bring equity into the situation. And again, I appreciate all the work that's been done, and looking forward to having some assistance moving forward as the eviction moratorium is lifted, and there's a great need of stabilization needing to be done with these folks who are going to be facing these problems. From all of the literature, the research, the things that I've seen, the forecasts on the national and the state level, because there's really no data coming forth on the local level, which is also a travesty. And due to that, we really don't know the real situation that we're going to face. I just hope that moving forward, that the community, our electeds, those of us who provide service in this community, the stakeholders, and even the residents and the tenants can come together, and we can really do something different and help resolve some of those issues. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Alana Klein.
There. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Alana Klein, 214 J Street, 12210. I'm kind of ad-libbing this as I go because just as Thomas said, I was expecting a vote tonight. There really isn't much more I can say that you haven't heard already. I believe that exactly or near 100% of the people who have commented on this from the public have been in favor of local law C. a complete ban on tear gas. So I don't know what the hesitation is on the council members' part. I understand the point of wanting everyone to be here, but if everyone was listening to their constituents, I would think it would be a 15-0, and you wouldn't have to worry about only having 11 people present. That being said, I remember in 2017, the meeting the night before the general election, the attendance was 9. I really hope that the 2 council members, who I won't name, who are in contested primaries, aren't out there campaigning right now. I understand that, just as Thomas said, I understand people get sick, people have family emergencies, everything like that. But if you're campaigning at this point with basically 2 hours left of not interrupting someone's night, and you think that's going to turn the page in your campaign, you've already lost the election. So I really hope those specific 2 are not campaigning tonight, because there is a precedent for me to say that. And again, I understand personal emergency, stuff like that. I'd also like to say that you probably can tell from my last couple public comments, but I was disappointed that Chief Hawkins did not get the Akron job. I really think we need to move forward, and I would like to echo Councilmember Johnson's suggestion about hiring someone from inside the city. That was one thing that was big. I remember when Chief Hawkins was hired, that almost everyone was saying, from the city, from the city, from the city. And now he's out to, then we search and get someone from Michigan. I don't believe he is committed to the city. I believe he was looking for another job, looking to get out, feeling the pressure coming upon him, feeling he was not welcome. I don't care what the reason was, but he's not committed to the city. And the press release that was put out by the APD today was just blowing smoke up our ass. I don't believe he withdrew his name, but that's my personal thoughts. Again, I'm spitballing here, so kind of seems like I'm rambling, but I really, really hope that next meeting, this comes to a vote and this passes. And I hope everyone that's voting tomorrow reads the paper and finds out this wasn't voted on tonight and decides to take their frustrations to the ballot box. Boycott the NRA, Black Lives Matter, Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Clerk, can you please call the next speaker?
Crystal Smith.
Hello,
Good evening.
am I on? Sorry, it just
Can hear you now. Yes. State your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Crystal. I live at 1312 Grand Street, Albany, New York, 12209. I'm here to speak against the tear gas ban. I'd also like to note, while everyone has rainbow flags around their profiles, the last 2 meetings I've been in attendance, I have seen people being misgendered and no correction, no a statement of like, you have misgendered this person, please correct yourself. Despite the fact that last time I was on here, my name had my actual pronouns in this. I saw people at Pride who had stated their love of trans and queer people, but despite that, there has been no actual physical or behavioral action to correct people who have misgendered people, which is problematic. That being said, my focus is on the ban of tear gas. My child was tear gassed. This is my child actually in the screen right now. You tear gas my child down at the South End during the May 30th police action. I can't believe that we are, I don't know how many months it's been, 3 or 4 months that we are putting this off, but I can't believe that this is how you have continued to behave with regard to tear gas. That's all I have to say tonight. I hope you will actually vote on this and stop playing politics with my children. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Marco Flag.
There you go. Hello. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr.
Cool.
Flag.
Yeah, I'm Marco Flag. I live at 500 Park Ave, area code 12208. Yeah, I saw a couple of y'all at the Juneteenth thing. So yeah, me and my colleagues at the Center for Law and Justice, we've been working pretty hard to educate residents of South End, Arbor Hill, and West Hill about the Albany Public Safety Commission, local law L legislation, and record their feedback. Recently, I've concentrated my outreach efforts on the South End. Other organizations like the NAACP and volunteer-led street teams have spoken at neighborhood associations, introduced legislation to organizations like the Green Party and DSA, and conducted outreach at sites across the city. So far, the comments we have collected in over 70 submitted feedback forms show the following trends. Trained healthcare professionals are overwhelmingly preferred over police when addressing mental health issues, with police only being strongly called for when addressing violent crime. Preference for changes. Second is a preference for changes to current enforcement and traffic laws. Third is approximately 50% of submissions said that they understood the vision statement and structure of the local law L, or the APSC. Our outreach is far from over. So we at the center plan to continue social justice outreach activities in the communities of the South End, West Hill, and Arbor Hill to November and beyond. And why those communities? Because of their history of redlining and the current high exposure to police arrests, which again, you can just check out with the current arrest data released by the APD. This rigorous two-directional community outreach is key to all legislation, not only the Public Safety Commission, which is again local law L, but informing folks about local law J, M, C, right? And following through on that, because what is going to happen in November is there's going to be an alphabet soup of referendums on the ballot that folks won't know much about. The other thing that's happening, and I think you're seeing that from the commenters here that have showed up again and again about this tear gas thing, is exhaustion and apathy. And I don't really know if that's what y'all want to promote, but that's what's happening right now. I would hope that you would encourage participation, but that's not what I'm seeing. Now, how we can encourage, well, so one thing that y'all really need to be encouraging participation for, in addition to all this legislation stuff going on, are the $130 million plus that are coming into Albany City and County because of the American Rescue Plan funds. That outreach is incredibly important. This is future changing, life-changing stuff. And the mayor's office and the common council must do a much better job at outreach, right? Otherwise, these voices are just gonna get louder and louder. We're highly frustrated by the last week's digital only fund surveys released by the mayor's office. Communities who would benefit the most from these funds, they may not have internet access. And additionally, at the beginning, those surveys were only released for 5 days, right? That's extended for a bit longer, but it's clearly, it seems to be an oversight or performative. Now, I saw several of you at the Juneteenth event a couple of days ago while I was doing outreach activities. Corey assisted in a bit. The people that I talked to there want their voice to be heard in deciding how these millions of dollars are spent, right? Not to tourism, but overwhelmingly from the activity that I was doing and the conversations I had in housing, public health, and whatnot. But most importantly, they want to be heard. They want to feel heard. So one thing to think about, I'll just toss it out there, with these millions of dollars, why not spend 0.1% of that $80 million, create a fund of $80,000 to generate resources. Okay, resources for a street team, an outreach team made up of residents from key previously redlined communities of the South End, West Hill, Arbor Hill, right? They could be paid, you know, 20 bucks an hour, whatever, you know, good money to talk with their neighbors. There could be an onboarding process to tell folks what questions they should ask. How do they submit that information? That's something that is 100 times better than a survey that's lost on some website. And that would actually encourage people to continue participation and would make them feel that they're heard. Yep, so that's that. Thanks.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Mark Mishler.
Hi, good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good evening, members of the council. My name is Mark Mishler. I live in the 14th ward, where I've lived for close to 40 years. I'm disappointed that local law C is not being brought to a vote tonight, as I was disappointed in previous meetings when this very important law was not brought to a vote. I'm strongly in favor of it. I urge the council as soon as possible to take a vote on this, to pass it, and to help to ensure that the mayor signs it. I'm troubled by the various arguments that have been put up against this and the various alternatives that have been put forward, which really do not address the issues that need to be addressed. There's a resolution a council member has proposed that seems to be in some way an alternative to local law C, which is asking the federal government to conduct a study of the use of tear gas and such weapons of war on civilian populations. Well, you know, a federal study would be nice, but the truth is we know what happened in Albany. We know that people were harmed. We know that the use of tear gas was completely unnecessary last year. We know that when it was used twice last year, those were the only occasions. I mean, I believe in at least 40 years. I've heard some other timeframes put out there, but certainly it's been decades since whenever tear gas was used by the Albany police. So how much of a study is needed? We know what happened. We know what was wrong. We know it was harmful. And we know that there was no justification for it and that there can be no justification for the use by the Albany Police Department of a weapon of war against people in Albany. And so, you know, that seems to me to be a tangent to go on. And the argument that's been raised that we can't ban tear gas unless we spell out exactly what alternatives the police have to using tear gas. Again, this is a straw man argument. They haven't used it in 40 years until last year. There's never been an instance in Albany where the police have used lethal force against people engaging in protest activities. Never. So that's not really an issue. The issue is tear gas is wrong, it's dangerous, it shouldn't be used against people in Albany, and that's what the council needs to say. If the police need alternatives, the police will have to figure out with public input how to address situations that they find difficult to address. Maybe if there was better police community relations, maybe if we had leadership of the police department that was truly committed to dealing with the fundamental issues in this city of a police department that has a history of brutality and racism and a history of a lack of accountability, perhaps if we had leadership like that in our police department, then the police would not find themselves in situations where even the thought of using tear gas or kinetic munitions would come up in anybody's mind. And then the newest proposal, which would sort of ban tear gas, but allow for an exception of the chief or deputy chief. We're on the scene, and the wording is so odd in my opinion. And if they confirmed that a riot was taking place, I don't quite understand what that means. How does a police chief confirm that a riot is taking place? I don't know what the standard is for assessing that. And then this law, sort of in an attempt to protect First Amendment, says, but this doesn't apply to First Amendment protected activities. Well, who decides whether it's a First Amendment protected activity? The mayor, the chief, one of you as council members? That's not really how the Constitution works. I mean, people are engaged in constitutional protected activities when they're voicing grievances and coming together and assembling with others to share their opinions. And, you know, as Dr. King said, even a riot is the voice of the unheard. So who decides what's protected or not? I certainly don't want the chief of police making the decision as to whether my engagement with others on issues of public concern is protected First Amendment activity or not. And I don't want the mayor deciding that. They're not the ones who get to do that. So anyhow, look, the history in Albany, whether, and I know some of you understand this and some of you are fully on board with this, and I thank you for that. So I'm not criticizing those who are on board already, but really for those who are not, if you continue to believe that the history of the Albany Police Department and the experience that most people have with the Albany Police Department is not one of brutality and racism and lack of accountability, you have your heads in the sand. And it's time to get your heads out of the sand and to do the right thing. Ban tear gas, ban kinetic munitions, and let the city move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Alice Green.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Dr. Ring.
Okay, thank you. Yes, good evening. I was under the impression that local law L would be introduced this evening, so I wanted to comment on it. But I will tell you that the Center for Law and Justice strongly urges all Common Council members to vote for passage of local law L, which provides for the creation of the Albany Public Safety Commission that Marco just mentioned. This proposed restructuring of public safety services in Albany simply makes more sense than the status quo. All across this country, cities are reimagining their policing systems. When Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 203, he challenged all New Yorkers to reinvent policing in our municipalities. Dedicated citizens on the Albany Police Reform Collaborative provided our city with a solid foundation on which to construct our reinvented public safety system. So creating an entirely new service delivery system, local law L decouples community safety from policing because not all calls to the Albany Police Department warrant an armed response. The APSC is to be a bifurcated community supervised body consisting of two distinct and co-equal branches. One is the law enforcement and the other would be community safety and oversight. Responsibilities that currently rest solely within the Albany Police Department are to be distributed across these two co-equal branches, with the law enforcement branch carrying out traffic control and penal code violation responses. The community safety and oversight branch will respond to non-law enforcement calls for service. For example, mental health issues, as well as oversee APSC policy development, implementation, and enforcement. Further delineation of the two branches is to take place after community members, particularly those in neighborhoods most heavily impacted by APD interactions have had a chance to offer recommendations. Social justice advocacy groups, including the Center for Law and Justice, have begun conducting community education and input sessions to help flesh out the complete structure of the APSC, as Marco has mentioned. Additionally, community members are helping to finalize the APSC draft vision statement, which emphasizes decoupling public safety from policing, centering community voices, and ending systemic racism. Integral to this proposed vision statement are 4 pillars of procedural justice. 1, treating people with dignity and respect, giving citizens a voice during encounters, being open and transparent in decision-making, and conveying trustworthy motives. A guiding principle of the APSC is sanctity of life. That at the core of a responder's responsibility is the duty to protect all human life and physical safety. Community response to the proposed APSC has already been overwhelmingly positive, from engagements conducted in the South End, in West Hill, and Arbor Hill, and most recently, just 2 days ago, at Albany's Juneteenth celebration. Residents appreciate that the Albany Public Safety Commission will function entirely differently than the current Albany Police Department, and that local law L actually reinvents policing in Albany. The Center for Law and Justice urges all Common Council members to support local law L. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Frederick Floss.
Hi, everybody. My name is Frederick Daniel Floss. I live at 16 West Meadow Drive, Albany, New York, zip code 12203. I'm just calling in. I don't have much to say except speaking out, hopefully with words, thank people, whoever is supporting local law C, the tear gas ban. I've had friends call me last year asking if I could drive downtown and bring milk because there were children who were hit with the tear gas. So there were like vulnerable people, there were elderly people. It's just something that, again, it sounds like constituents have made their opinion relatively clear for them on a large scale, that it's just not an effective deterrent for going after a handful of individual actors when there's so many people who may not even be protesting peacefully or otherwise involved. I think it sounds like a lot of experts have on both police and community relations and the use of that type of technology and weaponry. I think that the evidence right there is already evident for why that substance is extremely dangerous and potentially lethal, especially when used in large crowd situations. As far as deterrence goes, just heard from so many people who were there when they weren't armed, they were there, they had permits, and they still were exposed and their lives were put in danger. So I just wanted to thank, I know the vote isn't tonight, but whoever's working towards this, towards local SC, it's just the moral and humane thing to do, I feel, especially with respect to the citizenry and for giving people a voice without fear of reprisal. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
Matt Oil.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Alrighty. My name is Matt Oil. I'm a resident of Schenectady. I haven't been a resident of Albany for about 20 years, but I have friends and family who live in Albany. My family lived there for about 20 years. And most of all, I believe that it is my duty to speak against injustice wherever I see it. And for that reason, I'm here to voice my support for Local Law C. The use of tear gas has been banned in warfare under the terms of the 1925 Geneva Protocol, as well as the Chemical Weapons Convention of 1933. And while I guess you could make the case that the 1925 Protocol made an exception to law enforcement, I fail to see the moral logic of how weaponry deemed too inhumane for military combat can be deemed okay for use on civilians. Among the many ways tear gas can affect your body includes shortness of breath, sensation of choking, sensation of burning in the eyes, mouth, and nose, blindness, respiratory distress, chemical burns, and all these listed effects can be worsened if you have some form of respiratory condition such as asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And prolonged exposure to tear gas can lead to complete respiratory failure and even death. And rubber bullets, which are considered among the most lethal of non-regular bullets, can also lead to death, as well as permanent loss of vision, traumatic brain injuries, and solid organ injury. To use such harmful and lethal weaponry on the very people you are supposed to be serving and protecting, including children for Pete's sakes, and especially during a pandemic, is not just a crime, it is an act of war. And it symbolizes the massive failure of Albany's leadership to walk the talk on its claimed commitment to Black lives. Mayor Kathy Sheehan said last year that following the murder of George Floyd, that until white America acknowledges the damage done to Black Americans under the banner of enforcing the rule of law, we cannot move forward. And yet a year later, the city of Albany continues to contribute to that very damage as the Albany police continues to brutalize people of color, as we witnessed last year and in the South End 2 months ago, with violent tactics such as tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray, beating them in the streets, and discarding supplies and resources. Writing the phrase Black Lives Matter all over the city and the mayor's promise to remove one statue, which is still standing, by the way, doesn't mean anything if you aren't putting the work to create policy that will actually help improve the lives of people of color in Albany. Passing Local Law C in its current unaltered text would be a major step in that work. For the health and safety of not only those practicing their First Amendment rights in the streets, but all of Albany's residents, I implore the council to take that step. And I will save my thanks for when the council is done playing politics with people's lives.
Can the clerk please call the next speaker?
We went through everyone that's currently in the queue. I have 2 written comments. Would you like me to share those?
Yes, please.
This one is from Colin Clark of Elm Street, Albany, New York. I stand with other community members and demand the Common Council pass Local Law C to fully ban the use of tear gas in the city of Albany. Anything less is a shameful and harmful act. And then we received a comment from James Cheney requesting that the Common Council ban Local Law C. And those are the comments that I have for this evening.
Thank you. Since there are no other comments for public comment period is deemed closed this evening. Moving on to approval of minutes, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer the meeting minutes from our June 7th, 2021 meeting for passage.
Is there a second to that motion? Ms. Fahey, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of minutes passed. Moving on to consideration of local laws. Mr. Nani.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I just note a clarification with regard to the comment from Mr. Cheney. Ms. Gillespie stated that he asked to ban Local Law C. the topic, the subject of his email is tear gas. And it says, please vote to discontinue using it. I just wanted to provide that clarification before we get too much further.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Understand.
Thank you. Continuing on with consideration of local laws, Mr. Anani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed local law H has amended and asked for its introduction.
Thank you. Local law H is amended. Can you please read the amended version, Madam Clerk?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Law amending Chapter 133A, Building, Construction, and Housing, Special Provisions of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to issuance of notices of violations, penalties, and enforcement of stop work and unsafe and unfit orders under the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code and Albany City Code.
Thank you so much. That bill has to age. Local law, continuing on with local laws, Ms. Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to notice local law I of 2021 and ask for its passage and a roll call vote thereon.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the local law?
Local law repealing parts 4, residential occupancy permit, and 5, rental dwelling registry of chapter 231, housing of the Code of the City of Albany, and enacting a new part 4 of such chapter entitled rental occupancy permit and rental dwelling residency in relation to the city's residential occupancy permit and rental dwelling registry program.
Thank you. Discussion on this local law, Ms. Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Local law I amends the residential occupancy permit program, commonly called the ROP program. It makes some major improvements that will help track compliance and make it more useful to all involved. I've had, and I'm sure so many of us have seen in our travels as elected officials, the state of some of the properties that our constituents live in. And many times it is, there are landlords who just aren't complying with the code. And I've had many instances, far too many instances, where it's been very difficult to track down the actual property owner. And then even then to get them to comply with making sure the properties are habitable and safe is a difficult task. And really, people are paying outrageous prices for some of these apartments. And so this, I feel this local law is extremely important. It makes some major changes to the ROP program. One of the things it does is it really firms up the information that we get from the property owner so that we can contact them. Getting a copy of their license, getting their social security number, or if it's a business, their EIN number, 2 emergency contacts also. Firming up that information is so important. Also, a major change, the ROP will be posted in the entryway to the property. And it will have the contact information, and that will, people will be able, who want to go in and rent a property, they'll be able to go in and look and see if this property has been inspected, and they can be assured that it's habitable, that it's safe. And also for the people who live there as well, they'll be able to get that contact information, whether it's they need to contact the city or they need to contact the landlord. That will be right there as you enter the property, and that's a major change. There are some concerns that were raised about privacy, but Codes has been very helpful in discussing that. You know, you can put out a name and a phone number, and privacy would not be an issue. Also, there's the other big change, whereas inspections take place every 30 months, now it'll take place every 24 months. And this enables the city to stay on top of these properties. They turn over very quickly. There are problems that arise very quickly. I think it's necessary that the inspections are much more frequent. The fines are stay pretty similar, and they haven't been changed in over 9 years. However, because there'll be more frequent inspections, there will be a slight increase in the fee, but for the most part, the amounts will stay the same. Also, the chief building official will have the power now to revoke an ROP when there are serious health and safety issues, and this is, again, a major change. Those are some of the highlights of this legislation. Some of the other things that we're going to do, the city's going to do, is to send a letter out to all property owners. All of us know many of these rental properties are not registered, and it's been very hard for the city to get on top of it. So the city will be sending out letters to all property owners and putting them on notice that they have to register if they have a rental property. And that's a big change. That's a very positive change. So that should help to capture a lot of those rental properties that are currently not in the ROP program. And also the city, a lot of people brought up the need to have an ongoing dialogue between landlords and tenants to discuss some of the issues that come up. And that would be a very positive thing to happen. I want to give my sincere thanks and really praise to the work that's been done on this by Rick LaJoy, the Director of Buildings and Codes, and his staff, Corporation Counsel Rob McGee and Laura Golfo, and a special thanks to our advocates, Housing for all United Tenants, all who've been involved in this, and the landlords. We have many good landlords in this city, and they have participated in this process. It's the landlords who aren't complying that we truly want to get them on track here so that these properties are safe and habitable. So I would ask all my colleagues for support on this very important ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fahey. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can the clerk, Mr. Anani?
I just want to thank the sponsor and everyone that worked on this legislation. Again, this is going to move our city forward. It's going to address the urban blight that we see all across many urban cities. So I just want to thank the sponsor for all the work and the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anani. Seeing none further, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Valorant,
Yes.
Dochette,
Yes.
Fahey,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick,
Yes.
Howie,
Yes.
Igo,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
O'Brien,
Yes, co-sponsor.
11 in the affirmative.
Local law passes. Thank you. Mr. Kimbrough?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. The rest of the local laws on the agenda are held.
Thank you, sir. Moving into standing committee reports. I think Mr. O'Brien, Mr. O'Brien, you have one? Yes, Mr. O'Brien?
Yes, the General Services Committee met on June 8th to consider ordinance 155221 regarding street openings and repair of sidewalks, streets and other pavements, and unanimously voted a favorable recommendation to pass that ordinance. We also discussed a resolution for the naming of a portion of Clinton Avenue in honor of Benjamin Garland. And before, I believe a matter of just a few days before our committee met, Mrs. Garland died. And there was some thought about soliciting the family's recommendations as to how they wanted to do the naming. And so we adjourned at that point, and we'll reconvene when we get some indication as to how they want the honor to read.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Mr. Igo.
Yes, the Law, Building and Codes Committee met on the 14th, and we've taken up, so far we've taken up all 4 of the local laws. Ms. Fahey's got passed this evening. Richard Conti was going to pass his tonight, but I believe he's out of town. And Owusu has a slight amendment, and that's what they amended it for tonight. Then next Monday, the 28th, we're taking up local law G again. This will be the 3rd meeting on that, and that will be at 5:30 on the 28th. It always seems strange that we have to give ordinances from the law committee. We give the reports on them after the pass, but just to let everybody know out there.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Just want to remind everybody of Resolution 495221R about the lights in the park this Wednesday at 5:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Ms. Fahey?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning, Land Use and Economic Development Committee will meet on Tuesday of next week, June 29th at 5:30 to continue discussion on the USDO proposed amendments. And I do want to remind folks that the next day, on Wednesday, June 30th, there will be a presentation before the entire council at Caucus on the progress, the work that's been done up to this point on the USDO proposed amendments. And that's kind of a, in some ways it's a halfway point in this process. We will continue to meet after that every 2 weeks to, until we complete our review of the USDO proposed amendments. But next, I do want to remind people next Wednesday. And I also would ask that folks please try to get the word out to residents that this process is going on, because we do invite public input in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fahey. More standing committee reports? Seeing none, we will move on to ordinance. We have no ordinance, new introduction, new ordinances. We'll move on to ordinances held. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. I noticed ordinance 155221 and ask for its passage.
As amended.
As amended.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please read the ordinance?
An ordinance amending Article 3 pavement openings of Chapter 323 Streets and Sidewalks of the Code of the City of Albany in relation to the opening and repair of sidewalks, streets, and other pavements.
Is there any discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Ballerin.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Dochette.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Fahey.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Flynn.
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Hoey.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Igo.
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
O'Brien,
Yes.
11 in the affirmative.
Ordinance passes. Continuing on with ordinance L, Ms. Duche.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice ordinance 18.61.21 and ask for its passage and roll call vote thereon.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Can the clerk please read the ordinance?
Ordinance amending Chapter 375 of the Code of the City of Albany Unified Sustainable Development Ordinance in relation to incentives for developers to use energy efficient and low impact designs.
Discussion on this ordinance. Ms. Duche?
Thank you, Mr. President. A few years ago, we realized that a lot of developers were opting to add a green roof to their buildings in order to get the incentive of being able to add another story to their buildings. In looking at the provisions in the USDO that were adopted in the USDO, the green roof counts towards the stormwater abatement requirements that otherwise exist. So in many cases, the developers essentially are doing not doing anything more than they're already required to do in order to get that extra story on the buildings. There's also no standards specifically for the design of the green roof. As a result of that, I asked the planning department to take a look at that, and they agreed to take a look at it. The water department has acknowledged that there's limited additional benefit, especially if there's no design standards for this. So I introduced at the time legislation to suspend that particular incentive, and hoping that some further standards would be forthcoming and recommendations from the planning department. They've been very busy, so we extended one other time. And now with our USDO complete review, we are hoping to actually be able to take a look at this. But in the meantime, we don't want to let more developments take advantage of this incentive without the city seeing some real specific benefit, additional benefit from these green roofs. So this would extend that, the suspension of that incentive for one more year. And hopefully we will be taking action on other language before the end of this year that actually eliminates the need for us to continue that suspension and then repeal the suspension and replace it with more specific beneficial language. So I'm asking my colleagues to support this suspension of the incentive for one more year while we continue to figure out what is the appropriate action to actually be taking with regard to this kind of incentive. So I would appreciate everybody's support on this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Any further comments? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani,
Yes.
Valorant,
Yes.
Doshette,
Yes.
Fahey,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Flynn,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Hoey,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Igo,
Yes, please.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
O'Brien,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
11 in the affirmative.
Ordinance passes. Mr. Kimbrough?
Thank you, Mr. President. The rest of the ordinances on the agenda are held.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Continuing on down our agenda, we're moving to resolutions introduced. Mr. Flynn?
I notice resolution 546221R and ask for its introduction and passage.
Thank you, sir. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution of the Common Council appointing James Sano, a marriage officer pursuant to Article 3 of the Domestic Relations Law of the State of New York.
Any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Valorant,
Yes.
Joshette,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Fahy,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Glenn,
Yes.
Frederick,
Yes.
Howie,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Igo,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
O'Brien.
Yes.
11 in the affirmative.
Resolution passes. Continuing on with introduction resolutions, Ms. Fahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I notice Resolution 5562-21R, ask for its introduction and passage and a roll call vote thereon.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution of the Common Council appointing members to the City of Albany Commission on Municipal Internet Service.
Is there any discussion on this resolution? Ms. Fahey.
Yes, the goal of the commission is to research the feasibility, logistics, and financing of creating a municipally run, citizen-owned, high-speed internet service that will provide internet speeds greater than what private companies currently provide and ensure service will be made available to every Albany resident and business. On this commission, there will be 10 members, 5 are appointed by the mayor, 5 are appointed by the council. The commission will be expected to produce a preliminary report within 120 days and a final report within 150 days. And the commission will cease to exist 6 months after that final report is given. We have selected 5 members on the commission, and they all passed out of committee with positive recommendations. So I would ask the council for their support on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fahey. Mr. Ballard.
Thank you. I just want to take a second and thank all of the residents that applied to be part of this commission. We had a great deal of highly qualified individuals that put their names in, but unfortunately, we're only able to select 5. But I do want to thank them and let them know that they can still be engaged with the commission and still share their thoughts and ideas, as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any further, Mr. Onani?
Thank you, Mr. President. Today's a good day, right? Like, I could not be more happier with the way the process of selecting these individuals who will make up this municipal broadband. Individuals had a diverse background, skill set, knowledge of the commission. And I think it's really going to set the stage for successful development of municipal internet in our city that would, quite frankly, benefit all of Albany residents, no matter where you live, right? It is estimated in the city of Albany, more than a quarter of our current residents do not have home internet access. More than a quarter. Often because they cannot afford it, they cannot work from home, apply for jobs online, recertify for unemployment claims, during the pandemic, even register to take the vaccine. And there was a gentleman that mentioned earlier today during public comment, we're doing a survey on how to spend the American Rescue Plan, and there are a segment of our population that are going to be left out because they don't have access to the internet. I bring up these examples because they illustrate the importance of the internet in everyday lives. And the lack of access is a substantial barrier to various opportunities. Having access to the internet is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. And I want to thank, members of the interview committee. I want to thank the chair. I also want to thank Danielle for organizing the interviews. And also just to thank everyone that applied. Quite frankly, this is a step in the right direction. And with the people that are going to serve on this commission, I am hopeful, I am happy, I am optimistic that we are going to address the digital divide. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Nine. Any other first discussion? Seeing none, can the clerk please call the roll?
Anani,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Valerie,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Doshette,
Yes.
Fahey,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes, co-sponsor.
Frederick,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Hoey,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Igo,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kimbrough,
Yes, co-sponsor, please.
O'Brien,
Yes, co-sponsor.
11 in the affirmative.
Resolution passes. Continuing on with introduction of resolution, Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. I noticed resolution 56-6221R. And ask for its introduction.
Thank you. Can the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution honoring the life and legacy of Charles E. Trainum and renaming a portion of Mohawk Street in his honor.
Thank you. Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. There'll be a referral to the General Services Committee.
Thank you. And Mr. Kimbrough.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rest of the resolutions on the agenda are held.
Thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Miscellaneous, if there's no miscellaneous. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just, anytime that you have Dr. Green and Mark Mishler speaking about a topic, and especially a topic that is near and dear to the Second Ward, it just excites me. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of the people who spoke tonight passionately. And I want to apologize for, their disappointment on our behalf. I know that I've sat through many a meeting and I heard, countless residents speak up and speak with passion about their disdain for tear gas and rubber bullets. And, it's just unfortunate that the number of ways that we have come to not being able to address this very important matter, and a matter that, the whole city, and community, I ain't gonna say the whole city, but strongly the affected communities are speaking on. And, I think that our opinion should matter more, because the potential of it to re-happening is greater in our communities than other communities. So something like this, our voice needs to be heard, it needs to be felt. And I just, share in the disappointment that we weren't able to address this before the election. And even before, this should have been handled, when this first came out, it was no need for it to be prolonged. And, like, it was an educational experience for me as to how things work when, when they don't want it to get addressed. So I just wanted to once again say thank you to the speakers. You make me feel better hearing your words and just how you're not going to let this go away. And I just want to let you know that you got one person that's sitting at the table, and you're not to say that there's not others, but that here's every word that you're saying, and we're going to fight this fight until it plays out one way or another. So I just wanted to support our people who continuously come out, show up, and participate in the process. And it's unfortunate that the process isn't working on our behalf right now. But thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes, Mr. President, motion to adjourn.
There's a second.
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 All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.